Now, a day after landmark US-Russia talks in Saudi Arabia on the war in Ukraine, Russia targeted the southern Ukrainian city of Odesa, leaving tens of thousands of residents without power and heat amid the freezing cold. It was an opportunity enough for Zelensky to turn up his censure of Moscow. Locals spoke of multiple drone strikes on residential buildings late on Tuesday. Close to 500 houses were damaged. The Odesa mayor says 14 schools, a children's clinic, and several hospitals have been hit. The Ukrainian president wrote on social media that 160,000 Odesa residents are without heat and electricity. 4 people were reported injured, one of them seriously. Significantly, the attack comes in the backdrop of the US-Russia talks that were held in Saudi Arabia. US President Trump had exuded confidence of a peace deal despite Ukraine itself not being invited to the talks. Russia had claimed that its attack was on military targets in Ukraine and not civilians or the energy infrastructure that affects them directly. Zelensky lashed out at Russia on social media. He said, "Never forget that Russia is ruled by pathological liars." He said Moscow cannot be trusted and must be pressured. Zelensky also claimed that all US President Trump had actually done was pull Putin out of isolation. He said Trump was living in a disinformation bubble, though he did say he wanted to end the war by the end of this year.
President Trump, with great respect for him as a leader of the people, which we respect very much, the American people who constantly support us, unfortunately, lives in this disinformation space.
The Kremlin, meanwhile, came out with praise for Trump for openly blaming the Ukraine conflict on moves to admit Kyiv into NATO. Russian Foreign Minister Lavrov trained his guns on the Biden administration for what he called a pushy line of dragging Ukraine into NATO. Trump's special envoy for Ukraine, Keith Kellogg, reached Kyiv to gather Zelensky's reaction to the meeting in Saudi Arabia. Zelensky himself has postponed his visit to the country. The European Union has agreed on fresh sanctions against Russia, the 16th round. They will be finalized at a meeting of EU foreign ministers on Monday on the 3rd anniversary of Russia's invasion of Ukraine. All eyes are now on a Putin-Trump meeting, which the Kremlin says may even happen later this month. Moscow has called this the first step towards a resolution, stressing that a peace deal itself could take a long time.
They try to destroy in Russia. They will face many times more destruction themselves and will regret what they are trying to do in our country.
But the cities have been largely destroyed, many of them. They're like babies.
Our correspondent Anas Malik is now joining us live from Kyiv in Ukraine. Anas Malik, good to see you. On the 24th of this month, it will mark 3 years of war in Ukraine. How is Kyiv?
Well, Kyiv is a bit, it won't be wrong to say it, it's a bit angered at whatever that is happening, primarily because they thought or they hoped that the gains that they have made, particularly the territorial gains that they have made, would be something that would be furthered upon. The fact that the territories that they have lost, or as they say, it has been invaded, they would be getting back, and that there could be an eventual solution to the Crimea conflict. Now, I understand, and we understand that it's a bit too far-fetched to think on their part, but the American support and the overwhelming American support that was coming in, that made them believe or lead into this very illusion. Now this illusion is breaking up, and which comes with a sense of betrayal among the residents of Kyiv, which is going to mark the 3 years of the Russian invasion onto the country. Now on the 24th, you'll be seeing that different EU commissioners would be here at this point at the St. Michael's Golden Dormitory, where I'm standing, and they'll be paying their homage to the fallen soldiers as well. But largely, Kyiv is also bracing for impact. A short while back, we heard those air raid sirens going on, but I think the apathy is that people have become so desensitized to these air raid sirens that life goes on amidst these air raid sirens as well. So while Kyiv is bracing for impact to whatever the negotiations, the fallout of the negotiations would be, or the outcome of the negotiations would be, which does not involve Ukraine at large with regards to the negotiations that are happening on Ukraine, Kyiv is also of the opinion that the larger set, or in the broader picture, that European countries would get together and sort of form an alliance in order to push back the US from unilaterally negotiating Ukraine on behalf of Ukraine.
Well, Anas Malik, yesterday we had the US President Donald Trump not only speaking about the peace talks between the United States and Russia, but he also did mention something that was very interesting. He did talk about Ukraine changing their president because his approval rating, according to him, is very low. What are Ukrainians saying about their president?
Well, to an extent, what the US President Donald Trump had said is a reflection of the reality. Yes, the approval ratings have gone down primarily because of the lack of decision making and ill decision making that President Zelensky had taken in the early days of the war, and as it continues. In fact, the Ukrainians also view that the entire country is being run not through the cabinet but in fact by just one office. So these are certain setbacks or roadblocks that have led to these approval ratings going down. Of course, not as much as what the US President has been claiming, but that has indeed taken a hit. But largely, again, that is one part of the story. The other part of the story is that up until last year, November, up until the US elections, the amount of outpour and the amount of overwhelming support that the US was giving to the Ukrainian side, that led them into believing into this illusion that they would be able to make some territorial gains or hold on to some territorial gains, of course, none of which is materializing for now, which of course is very frustrating for the Ukrainian people and public at large. Eric?
All right, that is our correspondent Anas Malik live in Kyiv, Ukraine. Anas Malik, good to see you. Thank you. For all the latest news, download the WION app and subscribe to our YouTube channel.